Song brings a tear to my eyes. I can see some of you on the screen, and I wonder who you're remembering this morning as you listen to that incredible song. Who you will always love and who you know will always love you. We do carry them with us, no matter what kind of love we shared with them, no matter how we lost them. And with time, and often with the help of music, we sift through and we sort out what we shared and what was kept apart in our relationships, what we fought over and what we never dared name or claim, the reasons why we stayed and if we stayed too long, and the reasons why we left. We sort out whether we choose love or whether we choose power. It's true for women and men, because both women and men do the leaving and the staying. But a woman's departure is a declaration, writes Sarah Smarsh in her smash hit book about Dolly Parton, She Comes By It Natural, released in 2020. Also from a poor rural family, Smarsh celebrates the courage of poor women who were expected to stay, but who left instead. Women like Smarsh herself who were expected to stay in small towns, to settle for small jobs, and to stay in bad marriages of one kind or another. You won't get very far as a poor woman without believing you're equal to men, Smarsh writes. Instead of leaning in, a poor woman's better solution is often to turn around and walk away from a hopelessly patriarchal situation that she cannot possibly mend with her limited cultural capital. Well, Dolly departed or walked away at least 2 significant times. The first time, when she left her mountain hollow in East Tennessee. We might want to claim her here in Oklahoma, but she's from Tennessee. The minute she graduated from high school, she was out of that small town. And about a decade later, she walked away in her late 20s. She walked away from the Porter Wagoner show and from Porter Wagoner, the man, who was her mentor, her manager, her teacher, her boss, co-writer, co-performer, and possibly, or presumably, and this is according to me, her lover. I guess the real problems that arose between Porter and me were all about dueling dreams, Parton writes. Porter dreamed of me staying with his show forever, and I dreamed of having my own show. From the very beginning, much like Mia Castro-Alvarado, Dolly had big dreams, despite being small herself. The fourth of 12 siblings, Parton was born on a small farm in 1946. Her father, Lee, paid for the delivery to the doctor with a bag of grain. Dolly started singing songs as soon as she could talk. Without plumbing or radios or records or electricity, family members entertained each other. Her mother's father was a Pentecostal preacher who played fiddle and wrote songs. She made her very first guitar from an old mandolin and 2 strings she found, singing her earliest songs to the chickens and to anyone who would listen. She learned young that she could get some of the attention she craved and she needed through her music. Her Uncle Billy, who also wrote and sang songs, gave her her first guitar when she was 8 years old. Parton says she got her spirituality and her musicality from her mother, and she got her hard-working ethos from her father. She was raised in a time and in a place when smudging a burnt match on her eyelids for eyeliner was scandalous. One time, her father, Lee, scrubbed the iodine off her lips, the iodine she'd taken out of the medicine cabinet to paint her lips red. And She Come By It Natural, Dolly calls herself the original punk rocker, remembering how she pierced her own ears and so she could hang feathers from them when she was a teenager. Womanhood was a difficult thing to get a grip on in those hills, unless you were a man, Parton wrote. Womanhood was a difficult thing to get a grip on in those hills unless you were a man. Now, I'm a cisgendered woman raised in a city in the north, moving later to the country in my life, and honestly, I've had to struggle to see past Parton's wigs and makeup and nails and cleavage and plastic surgeries and Botox. Really, I'm still learning that just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I understand all other women. Parton explains herself with these powerful words. Glamorous women in magazines didn't look as if men and boys could just put their hands on them anytime they felt like it, and with any degree of roughness they chose. The way they looked, if a man wanted to touch them, he'd better be damn nice to them. My sisters and I wanted to look like them because they didn't look like they had to work in the fields or like they had to take a spit bath in a dishpan. Well, okay, I say. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I understand all other women. That song, the song we started with this morning that we let Dolly sing for herself, Just Because I'm a Woman, Parton wrote early in her career when she was barely 20 years old. She married young to pretty much the first man she met when she moved to Nashville, which seems like a good way to have men stop hitting on you to get married. Not long after they married, her husband asked her if she'd been with other men before. I assumed it didn't matter, she says, and figured the truth was better because I didn't want to start a marriage with a lie. But he couldn't get over that for the longest time. And I thought, well, my goodness, what's the big damn deal? Of course, there was no issue about his having been with other women. And so she wrote that song, Just Because I'm a Woman, challenging the sexual double standards and false saint versus whore narratives that have plagued and killed women all around the world for thousands of years and still do. Now, Dolly Parton sings about pretty much everything, every dimension of being human and being in a relationship with God or the divine. She sings about faith and doubt and inspiration. She sings about falling in and out of love and learning to love oneself. She sings about mental health, about depression, about suicide even. She sings about how we fight at home with each other. And she sings about war and being a soldier and about the impact of having to serve and to leave home and to fight and even to kill and then to return home to family and society. She makes men and women cry, allowing all of us to feel all our feelings so we can face the truth of our lives and find a little freedom, maybe even moments of acceptance, moments of power and peace in our own lives. From the very beginning, Parton has sung about taboo after taboo after taboo in her songs, breaking open oppressive traditions over and over and over again, reclaiming the true stories and difficult choices real women and real men make every day. In her song, I'm Doing This for Your Sake, Parton sings about a mother giving up her baby for adoption because the man who promised to marry her runs off after he finds out she's pregnant. In her song, Daddy, Come and Get Me, she sings about a woman begging her father to come and get her out of a mental institution where her husband had put her so he could carry on with another woman. And in Down from Dover, she sings about a young woman who goes into labor all alone, without any help, gives birth to a stillborn daughter. Dolly wrote Down from Dover when she was 18 years old, but the world wasn't ready to hear her sing that song until she was in her 30s. RCA wouldn't release it due to its controversial theme of pregnancy out of wedlock. Now, what happened in those 12 years from when Dolly was 18 to when she was 30? A look back at history's timeline will help us understand Dolly Parton's place in history, her lasting power, and her timeless influence. She left her home holler down in 1964, the year that landmark legislation outlawing workplace discrimination on the basis of sex was enacted. She left the Porter Wagoner show and Porter Wagoner the man in the year Roe versus Wade was passed. That was 1973. She made her Hollywood debut in 1980, sharing the screen with two notorious women, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, in a film called 9 to 5 that included a revenge fantasy against a sexist male boss. And she recorded Travelin' Through, the theme song for Trans America, a film about a trans woman's drive across the country with her son in 2005. Now, all those years, Dolly never identifies herself as a feminist. And she's always deftly avoided talk of politics to protect her popularity with her fans. But in a more recent interview, she did say this: "I suppose I'm a feminist if I believe that women should be able to do whatever they want." One of Smarsh's main themes is that many poor women who often don't have college educations live their feminism. They don't just talk about it. And Parton definitely fits that bill. Here's another example. When Elvis Presley wanted to record "I Will Always Love You," Dolly was thrilled. She was already a success by then, but he was an icon. Then right before the recording session, Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, said they'd be taking half the publishing royalties. The way she tells it, Dolly got real quiet. I guess they thought since they already had it prepared and already had it ready that I would do it. But I said, "I'm really sorry, but it's already been a hit. I wrote it, I already published it, and this is stuff I'm leaving for my family when I'm dead and gone." It would prove to be one of the most lucrative decisions of Dolly Parton's life. In 1982, the song became the only song in history to make it to the top of the charts in two consecutive decades. And when Whitney Houston recorded it in 1992, it went to the top of the charts a third time. As Dolly says, you need to really believe in what you've got to offer, what your talent is. And if you believe, that gives you strength. Now, it hasn't always been easy for me to believe in myself, so this next story was really important for me to hear. Dolly Parton didn't always believe in herself either. It took time for her to grow into the kind of confidence she has. She talks about how after she left the Porter Wagoner show and asked for a meeting with the RCA executives in New York City, she was worried they wouldn't want to keep her on. She knew they'd want to keep Wagoner on, but to her surprise and delight, this is what they said: "We're somewhat interested in maintaining a relationship with Porter Wagoner, but we think you're the real star, Dolly," they told her. It takes time, even for big stars, to realize their worth in the world and to claim it. And being a woman makes it just that much more difficult. Just this past Friday, I read an article in the New York Times about women in the music business. "For women in music, equality remains out of reach," was the title. And I learned that numbers for women in music have actually gotten worse in the 21st century. For solo performers, as well as members of duos and groups, there's like 4 men to every woman. Year after year, women are playing less and less of a role in the industry. And the disparity is especially clear, the article said, behind the scenes among the people who work in the studio as songwriters or producers. That for the men listening this morning or later who think we've achieved equality, I need to reaffirm that we are not there yet. And I need to invite all of us to consider that equity is just as or even more important than equality. We know this too. We carry this somewhere deep within us too, along with those we will always love and who will always love us. This truth that when anyone is discriminated against for their race or their gender or their social standing, we are each. We are all. The whole is diminished. Even God. We're not there yet, so we must continue to dream. Priscilla Renea is a Black country artist, and yes, they do exist. And if you don't know the Carolina Chocolate Drops, you need to check them out. And she is doing just that. She is dreaming big. Renea always wanted to make her own music. So after 9 years of building a career, she returned to her roots and released a country album called Colored. She says, I grew up on a farm. I had a pet hog. We had peacocks and chickens and geese, a pond, and all types of fruit trees. This is just what comes out when I naturally go to sing. I would always have this country twang. And Renea talks openly about the racism in the country music scene, saying this, the essence of country music is talking about your experience as a human being, and this is part of my experience, the Black experience. I don't think it's that Black people don't like country music, but we're not going to go somewhere where we feel like we're going to get beat up. That's an ugly truth, and it's something that's my dream to eliminate. She continues, I went to the Grand Ole Opry, and backstage there's 2 Black people, Chuck Berry and Darius Rucker, and I want to be on that wall, Renea says, and I want to have my costumes behind the glass case for in 50 years. Another little Black girl goes there and says, wow, if she did that, I can do that too. The magic is inside you, Dolly Parton says. Time and time again, the magic is inside you. The drum girl dreamed a dream and changed the world. She broke through traditions and taboos, and Dolly did too. And we can too. Dolly then replaced those old taboos with new empowering mantras like never be ashamed, be what you are, put wings on your dreams. So next time you're feeling unsure or insecure, whether you're a woman or a man or non-binary, no matter who you are, if you're losing your confidence, or when you can't connect with your inner voice, if you're beating yourself up for some choice you made or some opportunity you missed, ask yourself this question, at least this week. What would Dolly do? What would Dolly do? And then do it. At least try. I know she would want you to, and I want you to, and I love you, and I believe in you.
Thank you for joining us. For 100 years, All Souls in Tulsa has been a beacon of this free faith. We offer our services and programs freely online for all those who are interested. You can help us to do this by making a one-time gift today or a reoccurring pledge. We really appreciate you joining us and being a part of helping us make All Souls in Tulsa what it is. Thank you.
I've chased after rainbows, I've captured 1 or 2. I've reached for the stars, I've even held a few. I've walked that lonesome valley, topped the mountains, saw the sky. I've laughed and I have cried, but I have always tried. I've always been a dreamer, and dreams are special things. But dreams are of no value if they're not equipped with wings. So secure yourself for climbing, make ready for the flight. Don't let your chance go by. You'll make